So this is the UMiDiGi A1 Pro with the new MTK 6739 processor, and does this measure up to the competition? Let's find out. So I've already talked about the build quality of the UMiDiGi A1 Pro in the unboxing video, but I'll recap really quickly. Here we have the plastic Lumia back that's very shiny but also catches fingerprints very easily. The plastic doesn't feel super good quality, but it is okay. It does have a fairly heavy and hefty steel metal band running around the entire phone, which gives it some weight and some heft, which is a plus and a minus, I guess, if you don't like heavy phones, but it also feels more premium as a result. If you're taking a look at the bezels are actually not too bad. Top and bottom bezels are pretty small. Side bezels are okay. There is a little bit of a bulge in terms of this silver part that bulges out, so the total bezel on the side is not as small as I would like, but it's still pretty good. And especially for such a cheap phone, about $120, the bezels around the display are actually quite good. And on the bottom here, we have a headphone jack as well as a USB-C port. And I don't know if you can see, but there is a crack right here going through the USB, well, not through, but around the USB-C port on both sides of the USB-C port. So it is cracked. I'm not sure when I cracked it. Like, I don't know how you crack metal, because this right here is metal, or yeah, it's definitely metal. It's not ceramic. So I'm not sure why I cracked it, but do be aware that you can crack this part over here. Again, another quick recap of the display. The display here it actually looks fine. The colors and saturation are pretty good for the display. As you can see, the red and the blues, they all look pretty good. I really like the displays that UMiDiGi puts inside their cell phones. They look good. They're very saturated. It looks nice. The maximum brightness here isn't the best. It's okay. I can see it in direct sunlight, but if it's super bright, you can have difficulty seeing the display. It's pretty crisp, even though it's a 720p display. It still looks okay. And yeah, so the last thing is touch sensitivity, and it's pretty good. I don't really have any complaints about the touch sensitivity here. Let's talk about the audio here. The audio is actually decent. I really didn't have many complaints about the audio. It gets very loud. The audio quality is decent also. It is a little bit lacking in bass, I will give it that. But in terms of the rest of the audio, clarity, it's pretty crisp. It's not super crisp, but it is crisp enough. So I really have no complaints about the audio. Here, let's listen to a clip from Starship Troopers.
Jump on board!
When we're talking about battery life, the battery life on the MTK 6739 on the UMiDiGi A1 Pro is improved. In terms of use, it was mostly some YouTube, it was some Chrome, and some playing back some music also. So definitely not the heaviest use. There wasn't any gaming in that 5-hour screen on time. If I was gaming, I could drain this battery in almost an hour, which is actually quite fast. But we'll talk about the gaming part later. So battery life here is okay now, but it's really not super great. All right, so on the UMiDiGi A1 Pro, we do have Android 8.1 Oreo, and let's do a Treble Check. And on the Treble Check, it does support Project Treble, but it does not support seamless system updates, as it does not have the partitions A and B. So that is a little bit sad, but it's still good that it does support Project Treble in part. In terms of use, the use of the phone is pretty decent. It's quite fast. UMiDiGi did a decent job optimizing the swiping and the general use of notifications and anything that doesn't relate to launching apps, which will be bottlenecked by the CPU. It feels pretty fast, feels about as fast as you can want it. So where the bottleneck comes in a little bit is once you launch apps. So once you launch apps, for example, YouTube, which is a bigger app, it does take a little bit, maybe like 1 or 2 seconds to completely launch into the app. If you're launching Google Chrome, it is a little bit faster. As you can see, that was maybe half a second of delay. Launching Google Play Music, that is a lighter app also. And here, as you can see, it takes about 1 second to completely launch, unless you Google Photos. And this one takes pretty fast also. And let's talk about benchmarks a little bit before we move on to gaming. And let's start with Geekbench. And in Geekbench, I got a score of about 659 for single and 1780 for multi, which is definitely a significant improvement over the MTK 6737. But in terms of score, it's actually between the 6737 and the MTK 6750, which does have about a 2300 score for multi-core and about the same for single core. So the single core here is definitely much improved. And if you're looking at Antutu, here we have a 45,000 score, which is actually a lot closer to the 6750, which has about a 50,000 score, than to the MTK 6737, which has about a 3,500 score. So it's definitely a big improvement there because you do have an improved GPU also. Last thing before we talk about gaming is the fingerprint sensor, and it's not super fast. Let me show you touch. So that was about 1 second. Let's try again, touch. As you can see, that wasn't super fast. It was maybe like 1 second. It is pretty accurate, but it's actually fairly slow compared to other fingerprint sensors. Now, if we are talking gaming, this phone can play some pretty intense games. I was fairly surprised. Then again, this is a 720p display, so it isn't as intense as is required. As you can see, there is a little bit of stutter as I'm playing Asphalt 8, Asphalt Extreme. So if you do want to play games, intense games might be a little bit difficult. If this thing has trouble playing Asphalt 8 or Asphalt Extreme, it definitely will have trouble playing PUBG. And I did try it, and PUBG does struggle on this CPU. So if you really want to buy this to play PUBG, it's really not that great of an option. All right, moving on to network connectivity, let's look at the included network bands, and that is probably the biggest selling point to this device here. So look at the bands. You do have 3G 1900 850, which is important in the US of A and Canada, and LTE, whoa, that's a lot. You have bands 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 12, 17, 19, and 20. So that pretty much guarantees full compatibility with AT&T and T-Mobile. Verizon and Sprint, that will be a little bit more difficult, but I actually think that might work. But do check with willmyphonework.net or cellmapper.net before you buy this phone. And of course, if you are in Europe, this will work also, and in India also, because you got bands 38, 39, 40, and 41. So a couple of people were bugging me to test out the cell phone connectivity, make sure it sounded good, which I will admit I haven't been testing in many of my videos because no one makes calls, and it's usually okay. And the UMiDiGi A1 Pro does have okay, cell connectivity and reception, so really no problems there. Wi-Fi is decent, Bluetooth is okay, GPS does take a little bit long to lock. I thought they would have improved it on the MTK 6739, but they have not. It seems to be about the same as the MTK 6737, which is not a great thing. So talking about the camera quality on this device, and I gotta say that UMiDiGi is getting better and better. I think they've finally figured out how to take good photos in cameras, because pretty much every camera they've released, the photos have been at least decent, which is quite surprising. And even on this UMiDiGi A1 Pro, this thing can actually take some pretty decent photos. I was quite surprised. So let's take a look at this first photo. It's a very dramatic shot, but you can see that there is a lot of detail in this photo. And it actually looks very nice and, of course, dramatic. I like this kind of photo. I'm not sure if you do, but let's go on to the next one. And you can see that this one has quite nice detail in the photo, and the color saturation is actually very good. This thing, in my opinion, is on par with the Redmi Note 4X, which is a huge feat for the UMiDiGi A1 Pro. And again, same here, lots of detail in the shot, quite good. And let's look at some not macro shots, because that's where it takes a bigger toll on the camera sensor. And detail here is actually decent. So you can see some detail in the leaves and the grass and my dog's butt. It's actually quite good. And color saturation here is okay. I think it's because of the sun, so it is compensating a little bit for that yellow with a yellow tint. So I'm very, very, very impressed with the camera. Especially, it's $120, and the camera here is very, very good, especially in good lighting conditions. As you can see, there is a little bit of a rainbow halo effect or lens flare, which you don't see in more expensive phones, but that's something that can be excused. So yeah, and the thing is that the shutter speed here doesn't seem to be very fast, but it seems to do a pretty good job in capturing fast-moving objects like my dog, and I'm fairly impressed. The one thing the camera does have trouble with is capturing things at close range. It will blur things out because the aperture, I think, is really not enough, or not the aperture, the focal length is not enough for you to capture things at close range. So it is, that's definitely one area where this thing has a downside. The other thing as well is low light is obviously still pretty bad. China still has not figured out how to get good low light photos compared to someone like Samsung or Apple. Last thing here that I was not impressed with is a front-facing camera. It actually looks pretty bad. The quality is super blurry. It doesn't look good at all. But I will say that I would rather have a phone with a super bad front camera and a great back camera than to have an average back and an average front camera, because I don't really use the front camera that much. The back camera is way more important to me than the front camera. Talking about detail for the video, this is where I was super surprised because it sucks like a lot. So this video looks worse than 720p. Not sure what UMiDiGi is doing with the video here, because as you can see, it looks horrible. The video quality is worse than 720p. It looks like 480p, honestly. And you can see the compensation is, it compensates very badly also. And there's really no electronic image stabilization to speak of. So video quality is horrible. I don't know what UMiDiGi is doing with this, but camera quality is very good. So my conclusions for this phone are that it is actually a very decent device. It's for 120 bucks. It's not bad. You get some good build quality or decent build quality. The audio and display are decent. Battery life is okay. Performance is okay. You can play some intense games, and connectivity is excellent because it has full compatibility in US and Canada, especially on AT&T and T-Mobile. Camera quality is surprisingly very, very good. I'm so surprised with UMiDiGi for getting their cameras to such a good quality. I was not expecting that at all, especially on a cheap phone. But I will say that if you want maximum value, unfortunately, the UMiDiGi A1 Pro is still not the way to go. The way to go for that is either the Xiaomi Redmi 5A or the China Mobile A3s. However, this thing is the next best thing if you want to stock Android, because the Redmi 5A doesn't have stock Android. The China Mobile A3s has kind of stock Android, but it's not really stock. And this one does have a better camera than a China Mobile and on par, if not better than the Redmi 5A. But it is hampered a little bit by that MTK 6737 processor as opposed to what you have on the China Mobile and the Redmi 5A. Snapdragons 425s and 430s, I believe so. So this is not the best value, but it is pretty close. Let me know what you think about the UMiDiGi A1 Pro in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to hit like and subscribe and hit the little notification bell to make sure you're notified of all the latest videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.